and there's no level to get laborers to 150% happiness except over-leveling house and furniture and laborer over the journey.
Yeah, yeah.
You can get this in a tier 8 gathering house is 142.5%. But that's a number nobody will ever be concerned with.
Alright, let's make sure I'm not using one of my Eve overlays.
I'll just DM you real quick. Daddy.
Alright, hello, hello, can you hear me? Can someone in the chat hear me? Say that they can hear me or not.
I can hear you.
Yes, okay, is the audio balance good? Wow. I've got 20, how do I have 20 frames? Marlock is popping. Alright, so I'm just gonna be starting to build one of the houses while I get the stream set up and let people get in. I just pinged out to my alliance, and in my alliance's Discord. I need to write one more ping out, well, not a ping, but a message in the AO Discord to say that I'm starting, and then I'll be good to go. But I figure I will just start building a house while I wait, because I need to do it anyways. Because I really should have gotten this part done before the stream. But it's okay, we're doing it live!
Literally. Also, I can confirm this chat is not trolling.
Tactical, no, I'm not going to be streaming in Discord too. I don't want to tax my computer more than it already is doing all this. However, if you want to at me directly in chat, I can see them pop up. It's going to be hard for me to pay attention to stream chat and Discord and the game all at once, but I'll do my best. And if it's a short question, I can probably see it.
I'll be.
Why is the... I don't know why the graphics not...
You do your.
So if you guys have any questions before we start, feel free to post them in stream chat. Because that is what's just easiest for me to watch right now. They've disabled the big graphics. Interesting. So it's not just a UI bug. For crafting food, is it more worth your time to just buy the materials, or should you also farm the materials? It really depends what you value your time at, to be honest with you. Obviously, you're going to save money farming. Farming is a profitable activity for you to be doing. But you have to maintain the farm. I think using your farm plots is worth the time investment. It'll take you maybe 5 minutes to do one island. And you can be making a couple $100K from that island. I would say you should probably at least do that. You don't have to use focus to be profitable doing herbs or crops. I would say you probably need to run like T4, 5, or 6 herbs or crops to do it without focus and still be profitable. I'm just building while I get ping set up. So again, just feel free to ask questions in chat and I can answer them. I'm going to probably formally start in about 5 minutes.
Use generalist trophy journals. You can fill them.
Yes, use oh, that's a good point.
I know. Like you can level all 3 laborers in a house, in a tier 6 house, I think, for up to tier 4 just from the journals you filled with that house building.
There is no labor for crafting food. That's correct, Crimsic.
Also no alchemist. Sad face.
What journals do we need the most for the Alliance? We really have a good supply of all of them.
Yeah, I dropped my stuff in there. Like all the acquired books. Sorry, I'll not make it anymore.
No laborers, but you can fill generalist journals, CL. Alright, this is still T5. Just gotta post in a couple more places. grab a Discord link.
Crimsic asked another question.
For a T6 Imbuer, is it possible to get the max happiness since there's no trophy for Imbuer? Yes, it is. So for a T6 Imbuer Labor, you can only get max happiness on a T5 journal. So I'm suspecting you're trying to use a T6 journal. The way it works is in order to get 150% returns, you need all of the appropriate furniture up to the tier of the house and the tier of the labor, and you need to use a journal that is one tier below all of that. So if you have a T6 house, for instance, with a T6 labor, T6 beds, table, trophies up to T6, you can't get 150% returns on a T6 book. You can only get 150% returns on a T5 or below book. The crafting laborers don't have an extra trophy. They just use the generalist trophies, which I will show in a moment because I will get started here shortly. Alright, so now we've got that house built. Wow, that fills a lot of journals, constructing houses.
It does. It's very useful, actually.
Ready to leave? Up on.
Alright, so I will give it just one more minute or so. I'm going to grab a drink, and then I will get started. I need to go back to the bank to get started here, though. Alright, I will be right back. Alright, so I just pinged in the AO Discord, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi guys, my name is Exonfang. I'm the head diplomat for Brave Newbie Alliance. I am also just, I'm a former EVE player, so you might know me from EVE. If you're one of my EVE friends who is confused that I am streaming something that is not EVE, definitely check out Albion. I probably should have a referral link ready, but I will post one at the end of this. But I'm going to give you guys a lesson on islands and labor specifically, which is a primary use for those islands. I'm also going to cover some things with farming and how to use your farm plots and just some general advice. I've got a bulleted list of things to go through, and I'm going to try to make this as visual as I can, although really it's a lot of exposition. So, basics. So, you might be wondering, what is an island? Good question. So islands are essentially your personal instance, your personal little slice of Albion. And you can use them for two different types of things. You can use them for farm plots, and you can use them for building plots. There's also two different types of islands. There's guild islands, which are tied to a specific guild, and there's personal islands, which are tied to a specific character. You probably want a personal island. The key differences between a personal and a guild island is that personal islands have farm plots, Guild Islands don't have farm plots, but they do have a guild hall. There are some more complex differences with their access lists in that Guild Islands, some permissions are actually tied to the guild role system, but you don't need to worry about that if all you're interested in is your personal island. So what is a personal island? So you can go to any city and you can buy a personal island from the island vendor at the city. So I'm in Martlock, that's where Brave Newbie is based out of. So if I want an island, I'd have to go to the island merchant here. When I talk to the island merchant, if you haven't purchased an island before, it'll give you an option to buy an island here. If you already own an island, you get two options, either to visit it or abandon it. If you're accessing this from another city and you've got goods on you, it's going to behave just like traveling to another city if you've got luggage or not. So you're going to impose any travel fees. But because this island is anchored in Martlock and I'm in Martlock, it's free for me to travel to. So there are two different types of plots on the island, and now when you buy your island for the first time, it will not be this large. I have a fully upgraded island, so this is what the map looks like. It's got two different types of plots. We've got these farm plots, which are the brown ones at the top of the island, at the northeastern side, and then the building plots are the lighter colored ones to the southwest of that. In order to buy a personal island, the first level costs, I think it's like 18.5k silver. So it's relatively cheap, and it's also modified by the global discount. Right now, the global discount's a little bit over 10%, so it'll be 1.8k off that. However, a level 1 personal island does not actually have any farm plots, and it costs less than 100k to get to a level 2 personal island, so I always recommend starting there. Once you're starting at level 2, you'll start to get farm plots in your island. After level 2, it's basically one farm plot per additional upgrade level. There's 6 upgrade levels, so if you get one on level 2 and then one additional one for every level after that, by the 6th level you end up having 5, which are these at the top here. I'm going to focus on these ones first before I get into laborers. Just because these are the easiest ones to get into, they're the cheapest ones to get into, and if you have an island, you should be using your farm plots somehow. Just do something with them. It's free money waiting to be grown. It literally grows out of the ground. So there are 4 types of buildings you can put in the farm plots. It's under the farming category. So the first one, the most common one, this is a farm. Farms grow crops. Crops are used to feed animals or turned into food. Generally, food requires a mixture of ingredients from crops and a mixture of ingredients from animals. But the crops and herbs are probably the easiest thing to get into. Crops and herbs are relatively low effort. You plant it, you can choose to water it or not, and 22 hours later, you get returns. So I'm going to talk about both herb gardens and farms at the same time because they are so similar. So herb gardens are essentially just a farm that instead of using crops, or instead of growing crops, you're growing herbs. Herbs are used for potions and in potion crafting. And I apparently don't have all of the materials on me that I need to construct that, so I'm just going to hold on that for a second. But essentially it's the same thing. You plant some seeds, you can choose to water them or not with focus. 22 hours later they return product, and sometimes they will return seeds too, depending on whether or not you use focus. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. The TLDR with farms and herb gardens is that they're generally profitable without focus at higher tiers, although focus always increases profit. Focus actually guarantees you get a seed back, and you have an additional chance, depending on the tier, to also get a second seed. So as a general rule of thumb, if you can water half of the plots of your farm or herb crops, then you shouldn't have to buy more seeds to continue to run those farm or herb gardens. The next type of farm plot to cover just briefly is the pasture. this is where you grow farm animals. These are your horses, your oxes, your chickens, your pigs, stuff like that. And I also don't have the wood to craft this station because I guess I forgot that was a component in these. You can tell which ones I use and which ones I don't. The pastures grow animals. Animals eat crops. There is a handy-dandy animal breeding chart on the albiononline2d.com website that I use to figure out how much nutrition you need. But the TLDR is that each animal has a certain nutrition it needs to hit, basically how much food you need to give it. And all of the different crops have different amounts of... well, actually, I don't know if the crops have different amounts of nutrition, but you can look at the nutrition the crops give by clicking on the item. So after the animals grow, all animals require different lengths of time to grow. So I'm going to mosey on over to the vendor here at this island and show you some of those animals. So all of the different crops have a different grow time. Now this grow time is halved if you have premium. So this says a 1 day 20 hours. That'll actually turn into 22 hours when you have premium. You feed them crops, and after that, if you nurture them, optionally with focus, they increase their offspring yield chance. Which means you'll get another cub, which means you can grow another animal. So if you're slaughtering them for meat, you can replace that animal you just murdered. If you choose to leave the animal after you grow, you can instead continue to feed it, and it will give you products back. So instead of killing it for meat or picking it up to make it into a mount, you can leave it, continue to feed it, and get milk or eggs or something like that from the animal, which is used in cooking. So that covers pastures, and then kennels is the last type of building you can put on your farm plots, and these are for wild animals, and you can kind of see how it looks here. Unlike farms and pastures, kennels require, first of all, they require a lot more expensive materials, T6 materials to construct, and they only have 4 slots. Every animal you put in the kennel is used for mounts. Generally, these are found through drops in the world, unlike animals which you can buy from the vendor. So they're a little bit harder to acquire. So you have to grind for them, or hope you get enough offspring to replace the ones you're using, or buy them from other players if you want to do kennel breeding. I'd also say, as a note, the mount market is heavily monopolized in the game right now. It is not... I don't really recommend going for breeding, like going for mounts specifically, like if you want a kennel to raise Swiftclaws or something like that, unless you really want to. The margins are really tight, and it's really easy to lose money making those animals instead of gaining them. If you're ever curious why you sometimes see people saying, I will trade a mounted Swiftclaw for a cub, is because you make a lot of money doing that, and how you make money, generally, raising animals with a kennel, is if you get an offspring. Particularly if you're raising something like a mammoth, although the offspring chance is relatively low, even if you nurture it every single day for the day of its growth, if you get the offspring, it's a huge payday. And it gets lesser and lesser as you get to lower tiers. So that was a long-winded way of saying there are 4 different things you can do with your farm plots. You can grow herbs, you can grow crops, you can raise animals, or you can raise wild animals. I'm going to cover a little bit more in depth on raising herbs and crops, and go over base and bonus seed yield. So when you're raising crops, they take 24 hours to grow, and I said you can optionally water them. Well, if you water them, what it does is it increases the chance that you will get an additional seed back, and it guarantees you'll get at least 1 seed back. So seed yield, so if you click on any seed, and it's the same, each of the same tiers, so a T4 crop is the same as a T4 herb in a lot of stats. But if you look at each herb or seed, they have a daily watering bonus that says % bonus seed yield, and then they have a stat that's called seed yield down here. So what seed yield is the chance where if you do not water this crop, what % chance do you have to get a seed back? so if you don't water, you get a 73.3% chance back. If you do water it, you get the additional daily watering bonus for it. So in addition to 73%, you get an additional 53% chance. The TLDR of how this works, so each one of these seeds has a different value, different seed, base seed yield, different bonus, but it follows a pretty clear trend in that lower tier seeds have low base seed yield and high bonus yield, and higher seeds are the inverse. They have high base yield and low bonus yield. So if I look at a T1 carrot, it's got 0% seed yield. If I don't water it, I have a 0% chance of getting a seed back. But if I do water it, I have a 200% seed yield. So that means I am guaranteed that first seed, and I'm also guaranteed the second. If I go up in tier, even if I go up in tier just 1, you start to see the trend. So instead of having 0% seed yield, now it has 33.3% seed yield. And now the bonus, if you water it, you end up getting a 166% chance, which means you always get at least one seed, and you got a 66% chance to get a second. To give you some other examples, at T6, you have an 86% chance base, and after the bonus, you have a 13.67% chance for a second seed. At T8, you have a 93% chance to get your seed back, and if you water it, only a 6.33% chance to get an additional seed. Again, remember, you always get the first seed back if you water it. This will generally work out. Again, if you can water half the crops or herbs in your plots, then you should be able to not have to buy any seeds. I will also mention, for buying seeds, don't buy it from the farming merchant. Instead, look at how expensive they are. So bean seeds, actually let's go something different. Let's go elusive foxglove seeds. So these are 13,209 at the vendor. Well, if I mosey myself on down to the marketplace, I bet you I can find a price that's a little bit better than 13,209. So you should always check both the market and the island before you buy seeds. Oftentimes you can find what you want cheaper on the market, but sometimes that's not true. Now, so that kind of covers the basics of herbs and crops. Again, I'll be answering questions at the end of this. I know people have been DMing me. They got a couple of questions. I will answer all of those at the end. I'll stick around for as long as it takes. But anyways, if I go to the market and I search up Foxglove Seeds, you can see they're $12.50 at the market. So they're a little bit cheaper here than at the island. So that covers herbs and crops. So to just summarize, you should strive to water at least half of your herbs or crops if you want to not have to buy more seeds regularly. Lower tier seeds have a low base yield and a high bonus yield, which means using focus is better on them. Higher tier seeds have a higher base and a low bonus, which means although focus is still worth using, it's worth less using it on higher tier than on lower tier, because the bonus is just not as big. There's more of a chance of that focus kind of whiffing, and you only get the one seed, you don't get the extra. Pastures and kennels. So now I want to move on to raising animals. Like I said, each has, the pastures have 9 slots, the kennels have 4. Animals require different food. So pasture animals require crops, plants, and kennel animals require meat. General rule of thumb, if you want to be self-sufficient, if you want to have a pasture and grow, horses or chickens or something, and you don't want to have to constantly buy food, your farm plots, if you have a full, if I had this farm plot over here with 9 crops, all full, it on average would make a slight deficit to the amount of food I would need to feed those animals. Because of that, if you want to grow animals, you should have equal number farms to pastures, but you want to have one additional extra farm to that tiny bit of a deficit you're going to normally run. If you want to be self-sufficient. Now, that being said, Oftentimes, you can make more money by buying the resources you need at buy orders at good prices, stockpiling when they're good, holding on to them and not buying them a bunch when they're not. Just as a general rule of thumb to increase profit doing any of these things. I don't think there's much more to actually cover about pastures and farm animals. Just know that pasture animals you can keep feeding after they're done growing for products, and kennels are pretty much just for mounts. Both pastures and kennels have a heavily monopolized market, so I don't necessarily recommend going for them unless you're really willing to squeeze every little bit of profit out of the operation and really go ham. If you do that, you can totally make a ton of money. And if RNGesus favors you, you might be able to get lucky on your offspring rolls and make even more money, but it's too much RNG and too much work for what I like to do. I like to kind of do things as simple as possible for my own sanity. So that kind of covers farm plots. So now I want to move into labors, which is where I think most people have the most questions on. So labors are NPCs, TLDR, that you build houses for and place in a house. When you place them in a house, like I have here, I don't have any laborers in here yet. I'm going to build the house together with you on the stream so you can see how it's done. But TLDR, if I were to place a laborer here, they would sell me a journal, and I would take that journal and I would do an activity to fill it, whether that's gathering or crafting or killing NPCs, or if it's a generalist journal, doing pretty much anything. Once it's filled, I can give it back to that laborer, and it's going to, lore reasons, it's going to take the experience you've written down in your journal and go off and on an adventure and go gather or craft on their own and bring you back the spoils of their expedition. But in reality, they just disappear, and 22 hours later, you've got raw materials or refined materials or silver, depending on the type of laborer, back for your effort and for your service and housing them. So I'm going to walk on over to the bank so I can show you some of the things I'm going to be talking about and show you some laborer contracts. So laborers are basically like pieces of furniture. You can pick them up and put them in your bag like anything else. Oh wow, holy lag. And transport them that way. And they're actually fairly cheap to transport. I don't think they have much of a travel modifier, and they don't really weigh anything, so you can move them around the continent very easily. So I'm going to scroll down here. So here you can see I've got some laborer contracts. So laborers you place in a house, and they take a little bit of time to settle in, and they level up by you giving them these journals. But they also require specific furniture to be happy. You can't just throw them in an empty house. They're going to be unhappy, indentured peoples working for you if they don't even have a bed to sleep on, a table to eat, and trophies to, I guess, ogle at. So you need to properly kit out the house in order to make them happy. So I'm going to grab up some of these items. I'm grabbing up the tables, the beds, and I'm grabbing up a bunch of trophies, of generalist trophies, which I'll cover a little bit more in detail soon. And then I'm going to grab some laborers, and I'm actually going to grab some gathering laborers, because they're actually a little bit extra. So I'm going to grab, let's say, fiber ones, and all of the associated trophies. I'm going to meander down to my island, and I'm going to start furnishing a house so you can see how it's done. While I'm doing that, I'm going to kind of just explain each of the laborers. So gathering laborers, there are one laborer for each profession. Those laborers are the lumberjack, the stonecutter, the prospector, the cropper, the gamekeeper, and the fisherman. They're filled by gathering that resource or a resource the same tier or 2 tiers higher. And they return raw materials. So if you have a cropper, it's going to return... if you have a cropper, it's going to return raw fiber. If you have a gamekeeper, it's going to return raw leather. If you don't have any laborers and you don't have any contracts, you can get a laborer from any house by clicking on the clipboard you used to upgrade it to purchase a laborer to put in the house. So you can hire them from this window. But you might be saying, I realize I'm getting ahead of myself. I should have shown you how to build this house before I get into this, but I'll cover that in a moment. so you have different laborers for different types of gatherers, and then you also have crafting laborers. So you've got blacksmith, fletcher, imbuer, and tinker, and they correlate to the different crafting stations. So they correlate to the warrior crafting station, the blacksmith, where you craft plate armor and warrior tree weapons, fletcher, where you craft leather armor and hunter tree weapons, and imbuer, where you craft cloth and mage weapons. The tinker is the tool maker, so that's your bags, your capes, and your furniture. And it is kind of more of a generalized one in terms of the resources it gives back. It gives back a good mix of materials. All of the other ones give back refined, like all of these crafting ones give back a mix of refined materials. Unfortunately, I don't have any laborers ready to show you the returns just because we're actually in the process of moving a bunch of islands right now, along with many of you in my alliance, if you're listening from Brave Newbie Alliance. So I don't have the return to show you, but basically it gives you the most of the specific resource you use to craft. So blacksmiths give the most bars, fletchers give the most leather, imbuers give the most cloth, tinkers give the most wood. And they also give a mix of other materials based on what you would use to craft at that station. So, for instance, the imbuer, I think the second one is planks. Fletcher, I think the second one might also be planks. You can look up on the wiki the specifics of what they return, but that's the TLDR. So you get a mix of refined for crafters in summary, and you get raw materials from gatherers. Now, there is another third type of labor called the mercenary, but the mercenaries are not worth using. The returns they give are not worth doing. I'm not even going to cover mercenaries in this because they're that much not worth using. So just forget mercenaries exist. They're not relevant. Use gatherers or crafters. I will say if you are planning to do an empire, you want an empire of islands to make lots and lots of money, gathering laborers are not very scalable. Gathering books are a lot harder to fill than crafting books. Just because crafting books, you can do it from the city in a couple of seconds or minutes. Gathering books, you have to go out and actually gather. Which obviously, especially at higher tiers, carries risk with it and other things, which makes it a lot more of a difficult thing. At higher tiers, you wouldn't be able to fill 33 journals a day of the gather if you set an entire island up with gathering very easily if you tried. It would just be not reasonable to expect you to be able to achieve that on a daily basis. Crafting ones, a heck of a lot easier. You can have hundreds of crafting ones and run them daily, and in fact, I do, and many other people do. Once they have, when they have their islands actually running. So that kind of covers, that was just lots of word vomit about how that all works, but now I want to show you how do you get max returns. So I'm going to furnish this house to show you that. So different laborers require different things, but all laborers require these things. So first, if I wanted to set this house up for 3 crafting laborers, well, I need a place for each of those laborers to sleep. So I'm going to put 3 beds in here. And it doesn't matter where you place your furniture in your house. I have a way I like to set up my houses that is convenient to me. But feel free to set it up however you prefer. It's entirely a cosmetic choice. The only thing that's necessary is that it is in the house somewhere to give the benefit of the happiness. So I'm going to put 3 laborers in this house. So I've got 3 beds placed down. The laborers don't just need somewhere to sleep, though. They also need somewhere to eat. So I've got a table, and I'm going to place down this table. Now, the thing about tables is different tiers of tables require different, or seat different numbers of laborers. For a house, this doesn't really come into play very much. It comes into play for guild halls, but I'll cover those at the end. Long story short, read the tier of the table that you're using. This one says it'll seat up to 6 laborers, so I've got 3 in the house, so I know I've got at least 1 seat for each of my laborers. Now I've got the beds and the table, I also need trophies, and these help make the laborers happy. So trophies are acquired from the different types of journals. There are journals called trophy journals, which I will explain once I've got the laborers up and ready. But you would just, you need 1 journal of every tier from T2 to the tier of the house, because you can't put furniture higher tier than the house it is. So I want a T2, a T3, a T4, a T5, and a T6 generalist trophy. These are named different things, but they all look like these books. So it's Adventurous Handbook, Magical Tome, Ancient Scripture, Tome of Knowledge, Encyclopedia of Power, so on and so forth. And you can see the description reads, adds a small amount of happiness to all types of labors. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place down these trophies. And again, I have a way I like to place them. It does not matter where you place them. It just matters that you place them. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to place these in the house. Alright, so I've placed my trophies. I placed a T2 one, a T3, a T4, T5, and T6, because I can't place a T7 because this is a T6 house. And then I'm going to place my laborers. Now, you can do this either from contracts, by placing your laborers down like this. You build them just like you would build a piece of furniture. Now, note, I just said you can't place furniture higher tier than the house. These laborers are tier 8. Laborers ignore that rule. They're not technically furniture, so you can place them in any house at any tier. Furniture, however, it would not let me place a T7 bed down in this house, for instance. So now I've got the 3 laborers in here. They've got the trophies they need, the beds, and the tables. And now every single labor, whether it's a gathering, a mercenary, or a crafting labor, needs at least this setup to be happy. Now, you might set this up, and you talk to them, and they say, oh, man, I'm still settling in, and I can't do any work. So after you initially place them, you won't be able to give them any journals for 30 minutes. However, for an additional 9 hours and 30 minutes after that, they still are technically settling in and still require you to wait before you use them if you want to get max returns. So after you place them, you need to wait 10 hours for them to totally settle in to get max returns. Luckily, I've got some laborers I placed last night that I can move over to show you what they look like when they're ready. But before I do that, I want to show you gathering laborers, because gathering laborers has a additional requirement. They require more trophies. So at any point, you can pick up laborers just by clicking on them and hitting this pick up button here. And you can just pick them up and put them in your inventory. Now, if you do this, if they have any experience, they will lose that experience when you do it. And you get a little warning that kind of explains that too. So just be careful about that. So you can pick them up and put in your inventory, and you can sell these to other players, or you can just move them to another island or another house, which is really convenient. Now, if I wanted to set this house up for, say, gathering laborers require additional trophies. Not only do they require the generalist trophies, but they also require specific gathering trophies related to that gathering profession. So since I'm placing a cropper, which is fiber, I've got trophies which are a bunch of different herbs. So I'm going to just pick this up so I can get back here, because I, again, have a particular way I like to set up my islands. Again, you don't need to set it up the same way. And I'm going to place down a T2, a T3, a T4, T5, and T6 trophy for, gathering trophy for croppers. And this is going to help make the croppers happy and give me maximum returns back. So I'm placing the T5, and then I just got to place the T6. And then I have to put the bed back. Again, I just moved the furniture because I have a way I set these up, because I set up a lot. So I've now got, in addition to what I had before, I also have the 5 gathering trophies, T2, T3, T4, T5, T6. If you were doing a lower tier house, obviously you wouldn't place T6 beds and tables and trophies, you would just go up to T5. If you're doing higher, you're going to continue to go higher into the T7 and T8 trophies. Just keep in mind, at T7 and 8 with gathering trophies, you're going to have to pick up the T2s and T3s. Just because you'll run out of furniture slots in the house. So now if I want to do gatherers, I again can place the gathering laborers down here, and now these gathering laborers would be fully happy after 10 hours passes, because again, they require 30 minutes to quote-unquote settle in, and then 9 hours and 30 minutes longer to finish settling in. I don't know why it doesn't display the second one to you, but that's how you get max happiness. You can actually see up here, see that little gap there? I think that means it's continuing to settle in means it can get to higher happiness once it finishes settling in. You know, no one likes to work the day. No one likes to work the day they get a new house. Everyone likes to take a day and kind of relax. It's kind of the same idea. So this would be a properly set up house for a gathering laborers. Mercenary laborers also have their own trophies, like the gathering ones. But again, you shouldn't use mercenary laborers. They're not worth using. So that covers how to set up the houses. The couple of other things I just want to show you real quick before the end of this, and then I'll start answering questions, is guild halls. So earlier, one of the first things I mentioned is that there are two types of islands, personal islands and guild islands. Well, guild islands, they don't have farm plots, but they do have guild hall plots. Guild hall plots are really just they're spaces for a guild hall. They're 4 times as big as a building plot. However, they are essentially just 5 houses crammed together in building cost and in size. So this would be the plot for a guild hall. If I go to build a house, I can't do it on this island. If I go to build a guild hall, I'll show you it's going to take 900, I think, of each tier. Yeah, so it's going to take 900 blocks of each tier. It'll take 900 T2, T3, T4, along with some other resources too. The house is 180 per. Times that by 5, you get 900. So it's basically the same. There's minor differences in that you need less tables because guild hall is essentially just 5 houses put together. So actually I can go to where I have one of these constructed and totally set up. This is one of the things I did prepare for this stream. So I can walk up to one of the guild islands the alliance I am in owns. And you can see I've got this house set up with Fletchers. So these are crafting laborers, so they don't need the extra trophies. So I've got 1 bed for each laborer here. I've got the laborers going around in a circle. Again, this is just how I like to do it. You can do it in any order. And then 3 tables, because each table seats 6 laborers. So I have 3 extra seats at the end of it. Now, just like I have 1 trophy of each tier for 3 laborers, I need 5 trophies of each tier to support 15 laborers in the house. It is literally just 5 houses stuck together. Keep that in mind and you'll do just fine with guild halls. I will say, as a pro tip, if you are full on island, if all your islands are upgraded and all your guild islands are upgraded, aside from some of the first upgrade levels, the cheapest way to acquire more slots for laborers is to create an alt, make a guild for 100k, and then buy a guild island for 112k. That'll give you a guild island with 1 guild hall plot, which you can build a guild hall in, which fits 15 laborers. Assuming you don't have any early upgrade levels left for your islands and existing islands and guild halls, this is the cheapest way to acquire more room for laborers. So, for instance, I keep all of my crafting laborers on guild islands that are literally just a bunch of level 1 guild islands that look like this. And that's it. And that's what I do for that. And I then, for my personal setup, have 1 personal island set up with 2 gathering houses. So 2 houses of 3 Fletchers, or 3 croppers each, 2 houses of 3 lumberjack each, 2 houses of 3 prospectors each, etc. Because I gather everything, and that lets me run the journals I have regularly. I also do a lot of crafting, so I have many crafting laborers set up like that to utilize those journals. I think that covers the basics with islands and laborers. Hopefully you have learned how to properly set up a house to utilize laborers. Again, remembering, if this is my T6 house, set up with T6 furniture and up to T6, T2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trophies, if I give this laborer a journal, it will only be able to reach 150% returns on a T5 journal, not a T6 journal. Everything needs to be 1 tier higher than the journal in order to get to 150% returns, which means T8 journals, you can't get to 150% returns. You can only get to 137.5. But if you use this setup, and again, doesn't matter what tier, as long as you follow the template, you will get to 150% on whatever journal you're using that's 1 tier lower than the house, furniture, and laborers. So I would always recommend never, ever, ever running a journal at anything less than 150%, unless you have T8 houses, in which case running T8 journals at 137.5 is just dandy. Generally, you're going to make more profit with higher tier houses, but I wouldn't recommend starting until you can afford at least a T5 house, which the bulk of the materials, aside from the cost of building slots, like buying the island, sorry, I lost my train of thought. You'll want to acquire enough money to buy 180 stone from T2 all the way to the tier of the house you want to build. I would recommend saving up to get a T5 house, because T5 houses have 3 laborer slots, but T4 and below houses only have 2. And having that 3rd laborer slot is really important to make paying off, like making money with this, not take super long. At current market values, the last time I checked, which was honestly a couple of weeks ago, it would take about 30 to 45 days to pay off laborers, the investment in like this house or, houses, laborers, islands, whatever, for them to basically pay themselves off and start making nothing but profit. You can do the math, and I would advise you to do the math on keep track of what material returns you get from your laborers, so you know approximately how much you should be spending on journals, whether you're them yourself or you're buying them from other players. I recommend doing the math to figure out what's profitable and what's not, because if you buy journals for too much, then you can end up losing money, not making money. But for the most part, if you're crafting yourself or to fill the journals, or if you're buying them at a good price, you're going to make good money with laborers. And the only thing that's preventing you from making more money is how many laborers you have and the time you have to run them. It'll take you a couple of minutes to go through an island and send off the laborers on their work, which actually I can show you how to do on the guild island. But it's well worth the investment. Islands, to summarize, are one of the safest investments you can make in the game. If you run them, they will make you money given enough time. Given enough time, you run them, and if you're not buying things at horribly mispriced, if you're not buying horribly mispriced materials or anything like that. With that all being said, I'm going to open this to questions. So if you have any questions, please again type in the stream chat, and I will do my best to answer them. While I'm waiting for questions to come in, I'm going to show you how to set a laborer on its work. So any laborer you can open up. Once they've settled in after 10 hours, you can give them a journal. I only have this general list in my journal there. And once you give it to them, you'll see the yield you will get on that particular journal. So let me go to a T4 one. So T4 can get to 100% on a T3 book, which means it also can get to 150% on a T2. So I'll put it in, and you'll see 150%. So if you don't see that 150%, you probably shouldn't use that journal, because you can get more value by running it at 150%. So if you want to speak up and ask your question in voice, DM me on Discord and I'll unmute you in the channel. How much does it cost to fully set up an operational personal and guild island with labor? So that really depends on what tier you go to. I would say a conservative price for amount of silver you probably want to get started. I would say first of all, buy a level 2 island as soon as you can afford it and start running the farm plots if nothing else. Do herbs or crops. If you can use focus on it, great. If not, get to T4 or T5 and run it like that. Cost, it really depends on what tier buildings you run. All tier 5s, I haven't done the math, but if you have a fully upgraded island, which costs I think 7 or 8 mil to get a 6 out of 6 island, and you set up 11 houses on that island at T5, I'm assuming it would cost, I don't know, Overdose, help me out here, maybe 3 or 4 mil for all the houses. I would just check what it costs. Look on the wiki that has all of the Okay, great. Overdose is running the numbers, so you can get an exact number. But look on the wiki for how much the houses cost. Yeah, I can show you how to set up their ground, but look up on the wiki for how much the islands, the materials they take, crunch the numbers, times that by however many islands. Keep in mind you will need to buy or craft furniture to put in those houses. And note on furniture doesn't require any masteries to craft. Anyone can go and craft furniture at their local toolmaker. So when you're buying furniture, check the price, and if you have focus to burn, while it's not a great use of focus, you can use focus to reduce the material cost in the furniture. So you can either make or buy your furniture. So I can go over to this toolmaker. Again, I don't know why it's lagging so much. But I can go over to the toolmaker and you can see I can craft the beds and the tables and whatnot. Now keep in mind tax is going to be a bitch here, but that's where you can craft or buy them. So when you check the prices of furniture, make sure you're keeping that in mind. Can you show how you've set the herb farm again, please? So what I have done... So in order to build anything on your island, what you need to do is you either need to click on your character portrait and go to build, and then in the farming tab you can scroll down and find the farm or herb garden here, then hit build and then place it. Or you can hit H, the hotkey on your keyboard, and then do the same thing. Find the farm or herb garden. You will need a farm plot to place it, so you'll need a personal island and a farm plot like this that you have access to. You cannot place them on these plots that look like they have little stones on them. They don't fit here. So if I try to go to make a farm here, it'll not turn up green that I can. Does that answer your question, Fireman? It's about 15 mil for 11 T6 houses and a fully built level 6 island. Is that including the island overdose? Okay, yeah, so a single T6 house runs you about 1.3 mil. What would you grow on it? Okay, so what you grow really depends on how much focus you want to use watering. I prefer to grow T6 herbs myself personally, but really you'll need to crunch the numbers in your local market to figure out what's worth it. You can assume each plot like this will return 60 to 90 product. And for the seed usage, you need to calculate how many plots are you going to water and how that affects your base and bonus seed yield, and run the approximate numbers on that. If you use focus, generally lower tier is a little bit more bang for your buck for the focus, and higher tier is a little bit less bang for your buck for your focus. Because at a low tier, for instance, at the most extreme example, T1 carrots, you get 0% seeds for not watering and 200% seeds for watering. So you only have to literally water half your crops, and you got seeds for the whole thing. At T8, it's like 93% chance you normally get a seed back, and only a 6% chance to get that second seed in addition to your first seed back when you focus water it. So you might focus water 20 crops, and you might not actually see that bonus seed for any of them. But you at least didn't not get a seed back. So there's some happy middle ground where with how many plots can you water based on how many tiers you want, like what tier crops or herbs you want. But it requires a lot of math to answer that question. I would say just pick one and run with it, and especially if you're using focus, because that will mean you'll get more focus efficiency, which will make your focus go farther, which will increase your silver per focus value, which means more money. So hopefully that helps. I know that's kind of a nothing answer for it, but really I want to equip you to be able to answer the question for real for yourself, rather than just saying T6 herbs are the most profitable right now, or whatever, which I think is actually true. Please don't crash that market. That's should all building plots be houses, or can we add cooks, butcher, optimist? So, you should build houses. You can build crafting stations. However, you do not get the bonus resource return rate from the city, which means generally, even if you're paying really high taxes, it's not that bonus resource return rate is worth so much that even super high taxes make it not worth it. I would only recommend building butchers and mills because they don't have resource return natively. But keep in mind, to run a crafting station, you have to feed the crafting station. It's got a daily crafting capacity, and you have to repair the station, which means you're going to be rebuilding the station every month, essentially, regardless whether or not you're using it. So keep that in mind. It's not just build station and free crafting forever. It's a little bit more complex than that. But it can be better than taxes. Outside of those stations, anything else that gives resource return rate normally, do not build it on your island. You do not get the city crafting bonus, which is huge to miss out on. Farming journals, no, there's not any farming journals. So the only types of journals are gathering journals, which fill from gathering resources, crafting journals, which fill from crafting crafting things, mercenary journals, which are gain fame from killing things, but again, don't fucking use mercenaries, and generalist journals, which really are the least picky journals in the world. They will acquire fame from any fame you get. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's not coming from a Tome of Insight. So if you're farming, the only journals you can fill is generalist. J.O. Cal, you mentioned you like to grow T6 herbs. Yes. Is that for all farm plots on a full island? I'm starting an energy potion farm. I'm better just growing herbs exclusively. So, I use all my herb gardens, on all my islands, just grow the same thing because I'm lazy. Because I don't like to have to switch around for a bunch of different products and resources and try to make something more complex. I haven't crunched the numbers on, whether or not grow herbs exclusively or make potions. With enough time and spec and focus efficiency, and you just knowing the market and being able to acquire materials at better prices is going to make, I think, more of a difference in your profit than whether you're just growing and selling herbs or you're growing herbs to turn into potions to sell. I would say the key difference between those two things is if you're just growing herbs and selling them, you're not getting a ton of fame for your character. You're not progressing your character very much. If you're taking those materials and crafting it into something and then selling that, you are investing into your character. So even if it might not be the most profitable thing to do all the time, you're investing in getting more crafting fame for your character. And that investment can pay off in the long run. So I would say it's up to you. It's what you want. If having a consistent supply of energy potions is useful for you, then do it. By all means, do it. The great thing about this is you can set yourself up to do whatever you want. Given enough islands, you can set yourself up to produce almost anything on the island with very little running costs. Your running costs that you would be buying materials for is replaced with you spending the time to tend the islands, to plant the crops, to water the crops, etc., etc. But yes, production lines are good. They're convenient. They're convenient for you to have. They are a lot more work, and it's a lot more complicated to know whether or not you're making money with it. Okay, so one of my alts has a 4 out of 6 personal island. If I ban it to instead build a guild island, will I get money back if I put into the... do I get the money back that I put in to get the original island 4 out of 6? So no, you don't get the money back. However, if you abandon an island and then buy it somewhere else, when you buy it, you pay the initial level 1 cost, which is 18k modified by the global discount, but then you get the entire upgraded island back. So if you had a 4 out of 6 island, you abandon it, you quote-unquote buy another island somewhere else, you get a 4 out of 6 island, even though you only pay the level 1 fee again. I wouldn't recommend trying to do that to just get the money out to buy a guild island, because you can always just make an alt and buy a guild island and have it in addition to what you already have. There's no reason to stifle the investment you put in that personal island, especially having the farm plots, which again, farm plots on their own just like print money in most situations. If you're running herbs or crops at least. As long as you're not losing money on the seeds, you're buying them at good prices and whatnot. It's like very hard to lose money with herbs and crops past, I would say, T4. So like I would recommend doing that with the personal island and then just investing the money into the guild island. Yeah, I would definitely also say do market research like some people are pointing out in chat. You want to look at the market that you're looking to get into. Make sure you can move the volume you want. I would say a good rule of thumb when you're looking at a market, which actually I can go meander over there, is that if you are active in selling something, you can generously expect to receive 10 to 30% of the volume that moves through that market on a given day. And again, this is being extraordinarily generous. Chances are you will get far less than 10 to 30%. But if you want to get a ballpark of whether or not you should grow something, let's take the instance of T5 potions. Let me walk on down to this market.
Have a look.
Let me go to I'll go to T5 resistance potions because I kind of feel like that'll be a good example. But if I go to buy one and pull out the market tab and flip to 4 weeks, you can see how many sell per day. So you can see on average it's like, I don't know, between 1,400 and 2,000 with maybe a median of like, I don't know, 1,500, somewhere around there. So if 1,500 potions of these sell in Martlock in the entirety of the day, if I'm producing 300 a day, that's like 30%. That's very, very generous that you would get all of that volume. Chances are, in this market, I would not expect to move more than 150 or 200 potions a day. And that is if you are staying on top of the sell and buy orders, being that number one sale or that number one buy. So I would be careful. And, one of the markers you can look, see there's this huge gap between buy and sell. That probably means they don't move very often. Generally, if something moves a lot, the gap between the buy and sell order is going to be smaller. And it also looks like someone has... it just looks like someone just manipulated this market recently. Someone's doing something funky with this market here. Yeah, if I go to 7 days, you can kind of see it. You can see since that's happened, they've sold a lot less, too. Yeah, see, look, someone bought out the market here, nothing sold, and they raised the price by 2,000 silver. They're trying to make some money. Doesn't look like they've made their money yet, though. That was you, Draz. You made lots of money. Okay, good. That's good to hear. Good to know that Brave Newbie is doing well at this market. Yeah, so just, look at the market, do the math. I would say if you're calculating something, look at the market, and I would maybe use the 4-week average. Because, 24 hours is a little, pretty significantly different. But I would take a look, use the 4-week average to run your calculations. Consistently, is this going to be good or bad or profitable or not? So, does anyone else have any other questions, whether it's related to islands, laborers, or anything economic related, anything about Brave Newbie? I've got an unlimited amount of time tonight, basically, so I'm willing to answer questions for as long as you guys have questions to answer. So, on a T3 island, I have 1 crop farm, 1 herb farm, a T4 upwards. How would you propose further farm plots? So, if you have a T3 island, the best way to get more farm plots, the cheapest way, because if you're counting the price of premium to buy an alt and make them premium to get another island, the cheapest way is always going to be to upgrade that personal island. So upgrade that personal island to T6, and then the only way to get more farm plots after that is to make an alt and then either pay for premium on that alt with silver or by using real life money through SPI. And again, if you're buying a subscription from SPI, please, for the love of God, do it from their website, not from Steam, so Steam doesn't get the 33% cut. Or whatever the percent cut is. I don't actually know what that cut percent is. But I know for a fact that devs get more money if you buy it through the website. Exchange money between characters. Yes, I love that you asked that question. That's a great question to answer. So, there is kind of a trick to moving money between characters. The cheapest way is to build a tier 2 butcher or smelter in one of these quarter plots on your island, which I think you get at level 2. So if you build these, I think it's like super cheap. Yeah, just rough log stone and blocks. If you build one of these, you don't need to feed it, you don't need to do anything, you just need it to be able to move money. And how you move money with a crafting station, and this works for any crafting station, this is just, you got nothing else to use for these plots, so you might as well put it to work for this. So you build a butcher. Once you're in it, if you can give your alts access to the island, which I'll show you how to do in a second. But if you give them co-owner on the island, they would be able to claim this building. And when you're the owner of it, so if I claim this building from my alt, and go into administration, you can see I've got some money sitting in this wallet, which I could take out or put in, right? So I could deposit however much money I needed to move to my alt. I could then go to my island access rights, which might lead into, I can kind of explain the access rights system. But I could go to the access rights clipboard on my island, and I could add my alts to the list, and then I could log in with those alts. If they're a co-owner, they have the ability to claim buildings on the island. So they could head over here and go here, and they could claim the building. So it'll look like this. They can hit claim, and then they will have full permission, so they can go into administration, and they can withdraw the silver I put in the station. So with that system, you can move money for free or for the price of very little materials, move millions of silver around your islands. So you can, there are other ways to do it. You could buy gold and use that to move money between a single account, but that is, you lose money on tax, and if the market adjusts, you can lose money. It's just, I don't recommend it. You could also buy items and put it in a chest that your alt then sells, but again, if you're buying items and have a chest, you probably have an island. Just build a butcher or a smelter and do this. So that's what I would recommend doing, is just building one of these. But there are other ways you can achieve it. You can also just give the silver to someone you trust and have them trade it to your alt when you log into your alt. Now, I wouldn't recommend that because that involves trusting someone. And you should always be careful when you're trusting someone with a lot of money or assets. Now, one thing I will explain, because I kind of touched upon access lists, but I want to take a moment to kind of explain access lists. So when you own an island, you get this fancy menu called the Access Rights Management menu, or I actually don't know the official name. But it's a list where you can control who has access to your island and what kind of access they have. These lists appear in a lot of different places in the game, for hideouts, for buildings, for furniture, etc. And they all work basically the same. Owner basically means you have full control. Co-owner means you also have full control, except for adding additional co-owners or changing or removing additional, like removing current co-owners, which have all other roles aside from that. Builders can build buildings and demolish buildings they own, and visitors can just visit. So you can make it open to your guild, you can make it open to your alliance, you can make it open to an individual. You can't, I don't think you can make it open to just everyone, but you could just add up to, I think 250 is the list limit. You could add just 250 people to the people who can visit as a way, and if you just add the biggest alliances, it's kind of like making it public. So that's what I would recommend. I got distracted because Sasari is here. Anyway, so you've got the access list, and so you've got an access list on the island that applies to everything on the island. So, like, for instance, if I have co-owner, I can claim a building. Now, each building also has its own access list. If you go to the clipboard and you go to access rights, you can see it here. Now, this access list overwrites anything on the island. However, if they have co-owner, they could still claim the building, making it theirs, and then set up the access list however they want. But this access list, not the island access list, controls all of the stuff within the building. Additionally, when you place something in the building, it doesn't just inherit the building access list, it just gets placed with private. You've got to go into every single piece of furniture that can be interacted with, which in this case is just the laborers. Go to manage, go to access rights, and then you can control who can use the laborer here. And this overwrites anything on the building. So it's a tiered system, but if you have co-owner or owner roles on anything above, so at the bottom would be furniture in the house, middle would be the house, and top would be the island. As long as you have a co-owner or owner above that, you can claim things and grab ownership anywhere below you that you need. So it's a little bit of a complicated system. The nice thing is you can copy these lists. So like if I wanted this house to match the access of my island, I could go over here, I could go to the accesses here, I could hit this copy to clipboard button, walk over to the house I want, and then open up access rights and import the list. Now, I will say, be very careful. If I open this up and if I like move around, it'll close. It does not save when it closes. The only way to save this is to hit the save button here. So yeah, so now that has it. One suggestion I would say, if you're like me and you have 1.5 billion alts, and you don't want to have to reset access rights and everything, just make your alts co-owner on the island, on the access list on the island, and then in the on your buildings, you can just, as long as you remember not to let anyone else in your island, because they could steal whatever they want. But if you've got all your alts as co-owners, you can just set all the buildings and all the furniture to public, and then you don't have to worry about adding all of your like extra alts down the line. You just need to add them to the access list of the island itself. Again, remember, public access is scary. Giving it to them, like, if I give public access to anyone on this labor and I invite a random nerd to my island, he can come here and he can pick up the furniture in the house. So be careful about that. That they can't do that. Ninja Bomb, yes, there will be a VOD. The VOD's going to be in my Twitch channel, and I'm also just going to download it and upload it to my YouTube channel as well. So after your herb farm and crop, what do you build? And I'm answering questions right now. So if you guys have any questions on laborers, islands, or the economy in general, I'm happy to answer. I'm going to be here for at least up to another hour, maybe 2. I really don't have much else going on today. So after your urban crop farm, what do you build here for each tier level? So for each tier of your island, I'm going to assume you're talking about, you get additional building plots and you get additional farm plots. So you would just build more farms or more houses for more laborers. What's the limit on co-owners? So there's no limit on co-owners. The limit on co-owners is co-owners cannot create additional co-owners and they cannot remove co-owners. So for instance, I'm going to go over to one of my other islands, Martlock Brave Company Island. And I'm going to try to change the access rights on this island. Now, the owner is Martlock Brave Company, the guild. I might be a co-owner, but I can't just delete other people and save. It'll say access rights not changed, access is denied. Because I'm a co-owner, I'm not the owner. So I can't remove or change or add other co-owners. I can do everything else. I can add more builders, I can add more visitors, etc.
Priority speaker.
Ah, thank you for reminding me. So what I would say, Ganesh, is that you should immediately start using your farm and building plots. Your farm plots for herb gardens or crops, and start growing crops, because that's just low investment, quick money, free money. Then save up until you can build a T5 house with furniture. So 3 T5 beds, a T5 table, a T2, 3, 4, 5 trophy, a T2, 3, 4, 5 gathering trophy. Yeah, I know, I've got it muted just so no one comes on and tries to ruin my stream. So you would just put those things in, put in laborers and start leveling your laborers. Then save up until you can afford another house and just keep rolling on that train. As soon as you can afford another house, again, leave yourself some money to invest, to flip on the market, to cover a gear and re-gearing, to like continue to have fun in the game. But when you've got enough extra spare change, invest that in an extra house and keep going. And once you've filled all your houses, start upgrading your houses. You're going to get back some of your investment in your furniture, your beds, and your tables, because you're going to want a T6 beds, and you're going to want T6 beds and tables anyways. So you're going to sell them on the market and buy the T6 ones. And then again, T7, T8. Now, I would recommend once you get all your houses to T6 and your island 6 out of 6, you think, do I want to have another island, or do I want to start upgrading my houses to T7? Because up to T6, the difference between the tiers is relatively small, but T6 to T7, the difference between how expensive it is to upgrade the house gets huge. Like, huge. Like, it's several million to go from T6 to T7. So, at that point, you have kind of a decision to make. Like I said, do you want to get another character, pay for premium with silver on that character and just buy another island and make more T6 houses, T5 houses, whatever, and that way? Or do you want to upgrade your houses to T7 and T8 or, higher tiers? Again, I would probably recommend, after T6, I prefer to make more islands, purely for the additional farm plots. I haven't crunched the numbers to tell you, like, how long each one takes off to pay for itself, unfortunately. I would assume it's about the same amount of time to pay off, probably a little bit higher on T7 and T8, but the profit you make after you pay it off is probably a lot better in T7 and T8. Ninja Bomb. Fishing is my main activity. Should I get fishing and cooking laborers on my island? So there are no cooking laborers, but I would definitely recommend getting some fishing gathering laborers. I would not recommend going an entire island deep of fishing gathering laborers because it takes a very long time to fill journals, especially gathering journals. Sorry, it takes a very long time to fill gathering journals. It doesn't really take that long to fill other kinds of journals. But it would be unrealistic. You would need to be gathering for 8 to 15 hours in a day to fill 33 T6 fishing journals or 33 T6 whatever gathering journals. So I would say maybe I would start with 2 or 3 houses. See if you can fill those every day. And if you can't fill them regularly, you can just take down the fishing trophies, put in crafting laborers, and swap them for a period of time. Bank all your fishing journals until you get a big chunk. Then, you waste 10 hours of the taking down the labor, putting it back, and settling it in. But you can always swap your houses around. You can pick up all the furniture in your house. So if you say you did do a full island of gathering laborers, I have 33 fiber laborers after all. When I stock up enough journals, I just swap out an island for a few weeks, run all my journals, and then swap them back. And then I just keep banking them until I get to a certain threshold where I can run that island for an amount of time. Again, you just have to remember, after you place a laborer, it's going to take 10 hours before you can use that labor. So what I do is I just wait until the next day. The next day I tend my laborers and tend them at that time. Again, what you should farm really depends on the market. I think AlbionOnline2D.com has some tools you can use it'll run the calculations for you. I would say enter your own prices when you're using those calculations instead of just relying on whatever was pulled with the Albion Online data project, because that data can be a little bit out of date. But enter in your own numbers. Again, I would say use 4-week averages for when you're crunching numbers to see what's profitable and what's not. And see what's profitable based on math. Don't. It's a player-driven economy. What's profitable today might not be profitable tomorrow. You should do the math. If you're trying to go ham on something, you should do the math yourself and figure it out for yourself. That's the only way to know for sure. I can say, generally, recently, T6 herbs have been the most profitable, or neck and neck with T7 herbs, in terms of just between farm plots and herb garden, or farms and herb gardens. Based on my math, that's what I saw was the most profitable. Now that I've said that, and that you all know that, and if every single one of you starts making T6 herbs, then it's probably not going to be the most profitable anymore, right? It's player driven, so it's hard to say. And keeping it, if you are, if I set my entire guild, which has, a lot of farm plots that have been donated, and I did nothing but the same thing, and I sold it all at once, yes, I would crash a market. If you are working on high scales and large scales, which you might get to at some point. I've got 10 personally, with 5 to 6 more, depending on how you look at the ones that I own for the Alliance. And you could get there, so planning for scalability can be important. Again, do we have any other questions? I'm just answering questions about islands and laborers and the economy now. Earlier and with the VOD, you'll see the my kind of Islands and Laborers 101 class, and now it's just open questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in stream chat, and I will do my best to answer them, and I'm just going to keep this going until I got no more questions to answer. And if you're interested in Albion Online content, I am considering doing more streaming in the future, so I would appreciate a follow. I do see a lot of people have followed me, and I appreciate you all for that. I'm probably going to be doing more classes like this. I do want to do some gameplay eventually, but to be honest with you, I'm so tied up with helping lead Brave Newbie that this is kind of a secondary priority for me right now. But anything I can do to help new players, including streams like this, is something I want to do. If you are one of my Eve friends who happens to stumble upon me because of the streaming I did for Eve earlier, I encourage you to give Albion a try and reach out to me if you do. And thank you all, Tier 1 Jinx, Asari, Tanis, Fireman, and Flawed Glory. Sometimes all you gotta do is whore yourself out. Alright, let me look at chat. Should I just buy T4 laborers right off the bat instead of lower tiers? So, it depends on the price. I think it only takes less than a week to get a laborer from T2 to T4. So it's not that big of a time investment. If you're tight on money, I would say definitely level it yourself. Use generalist trophies to level up that laborer, just because they're easy and quick to fill. And if it's cheap, if you find a good price, buy it then. Like it's kind of comes down to how much you value your time at. Chris Men's, brand new to Albion, just bought my first island. You mentioned the laborers. I should wait until around tier 5. What else should I work towards? So I would work towards, so if you're brand new, I would say, first of all, if you have your island, get your farm plots to work. I would say get at least to level 2. Level 3 is still pretty good bang for your buck. And build herb gardens or farm plots and start growing them. That will be it won't be much money, especially as you have low focus. Use your focus on that because you probably don't have anything better to use your focus on yet until you start getting into crafting. Great, you have it level 2 growing carrots. That's perfect. So when you can afford getting that 3rd upgrade, it's very good bang for your buck. After that, kind of consider it. I would say you should spend this time working on your personal skills in Albion. Get all your armors unlocked to T4. Start unlocking some weapons at T4. Mess around with different areas of the game. See what you enjoy, because you need to figure out something you can do actively that will let you make money. Whether that's going out and doing solo dungeons, doing hellgates, PvPing and ganking, whatever activity you like. I would find some activity you like to do and figure out how to make money doing those things. Because islands, they require some money to get started, but they are, like I said, one of the safest investments you can make in the game. It's very difficult to lose money with your island, but for a new player, it can be a lot of silver to start. Awesome, I'm glad that you're liking us out. That you're liking our guild. That came out weird. Yeah, you'll see me around. Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, like I said, it will take a while to pay off. It takes, like I said, 30 to 45 days to pay off, depending on you're using focus, how many laborers you got, etc., etc., etc. But expect it to take a month or two to pay off. But after that, it's basically just consistent money that you don't really need to do a whole lot to keep rolling. When I had all of my islands up, I make somewhere between 2 and 3 million a day, just in assets from what my laborers are generating and from what all my farm plots are generating. That kind of income is great, but keep in mind that I probably spent, I don't know, somewhere between 60 and 100 million investing into the islands to get to that 2 or 3 million a day in return. So while your investment is low right now and your returns are low right now, the more you invest, the more it's going to return back. There is a limit, because it does take time to go run the islands. It does take time to set the laborers on their jobs. It takes time to tend the crops, to nurture the animals. So there's a limit of how much you can do, and running those islands takes me like an hour to 90 minutes. And it takes time in leveling the laborers, like Overdose is pointing out. But it's a good investment to make. It's one of the safest things you can make. Safest investments you can make in the game. To get it rolling, it's just consistent, easy money. Most of my wealth comes from just running islands, and that is it. And while I'm answering questions, I'm gonna just start building houses on my island,
Get on.
so you guys can kind of see what it looks like. It does take a while to build these things, I'm not gonna lie, so you can kind of see what it's like. Is it worth it to buy filled books? So that really depends on the price. What I do to answer that question is I track the returns that my laborers give. And I basically, so I can figure out what's the average return. Then I figure out what the price of that quote-unquote average return. I figure out what that price is, and if it's higher than the price of the journal, I buy the journal. And if it's not, I don't buy the journal. So I hate to give you a nothing burger answer, but you've really got to just do the math. The best way to do the math is to just run journals, write down what you get, run averages to figure out what the average return is. So, yeah, like I said, I don't want to give you this is most profitable or this is best now, because best in Albion is most oftentimes a fallacy. What's best today is going to be different tomorrow. And what's best right now could be different depending on a lot of factors. It could be Lupac just released a video about enchanted essences or something, which has fucked the essence market, so now your enchanted potions aren't worth as much, or some shit like that. Like, it's a player-driven economy. That is all-inclusive. Some of it's crafting books, some of it's negotiating books, some of it's going around buying books. Sorry, the question was, I said I spent around 2 hours per day, said about 60 to 90 minutes, but about the same to just tend the land or fill the books and manage the land, and it's a mixture of both. Oftentimes I craft in bulk, so I don't have to so I don't have to like do it every day, basically, because I have literally every single type of crafting and gathering labor. I just buy in bulk. Most of the times I'm posting on Discords to buy in bulk and buy them. I have calculators that I have written down all those things into spreadsheets that tell me the math on whether or not a journal is worth it or not based on the average price of materials, based on prices I enter. So I just fucking type in numbers into my spreadsheet and it tells me whether or not it's a good price. But that's kind of a very valuable spreadsheet, and I can't just give that out to people unless you're in Brave Newbie. If you're in Brave Newbie, just send me a DM and I can send it to you. So you can build something like that to achieve it, but you're going to have to fill in the data yourself, because that is not easily acquired. And I see some people are DMing me. I will get back to you after the stream, obviously. Don't quite understand how you interact with the laborer. So you buy a journal, then what? You do the activity, fill it up with fame, blah, 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 blah. Then return the journal back to the laborer. So basically what you do is you go to your laborer. So I'll go to the center house here. So when you go to a laborer, you can go to the journals tab to buy the journals from them. And you get, for gatherings, you get 3 choice. For crafting, you get 2. But basically you've got the resource journal, so this is a cropper, so it's a cropper journal, and then you've got the resource trophy journal, cropper trophy journal, and then you've got your generalist trophy journal. You get these items, and the different journals are filled from different things. So gathering laborers are filled from gathering that resource, that tier resource, or up to 2 tiers higher. Crafting ones are crafting something of the same tier as the journal. And generalist ones do not give a fuck what fame you get. They will suck it all up. They are the least picky. A T8 journal will, generalist trophy journal will get fame from killing T2 mobs. Does not care. So those are the different kinds of journals. Once you fill the journals, you get what are basically just called, trophy journal full. And you can give these journals to the laborers. So I could go to the laborer. I could shift click on the journal from my inventory to shift it over, or I can just drag and drop. and then I can choose whether or not to send the laborer off on the mission or not. 22 hours later, they're going to come back, and they're going to give me back resources based on what I gave them. So let me go grab a gathering journal, because it'll make a little bit more sense if I do one that's related to the same gatherer or laborer. So you can see kind of what you get back. But yes, as the chat's going on, as you get higher spec in gathering, you do gather more because of bonus yield, so you do gather a little bit faster. Let me grab some of my journals. Now, keep in mind that the laborers I placed in this house are less than 10 hours old in that house, so they are not totally settled in, which means they won't be able to get max return on these journals. So, and this is a good opportunity to explain one other thing. You can get to your islands two different ways. You can either go to the island planner, where it has quick access to your personal, to your guild, or a list of others. But this list is really, really unwieldy to use. Instead of using that list or using the island vendor to travel, I recommend you should use the travel planner. Because the travel planner, you can get to the same spots, but instead of that horrible list, you can just find it in your drop down here. And you can even type in this list to filter the destination. So this saves me so much time. So anyways, I've got the journals, and I teleported to the here because I have this house set as my home, and you can teleport straight to your home. Little pro tip, if you have only one island, you can set your home to your island, and I guess if you don't have a hideout in the outlands, or you're not binding your home to the rest cities in the outlands, you can just set your home here, and it will teleport you to the center of the map, which is a more efficient spot to start in, if you're an efficiency nut like I am. But anyways, I can come back to the journals now that I have the proper journals. And I can give them my journal, and you can see I can't get 150% because it's a T6 house and a T6 journal, but they're also not done settling in. Again, T5. I guess T5s I can get to 150%. I guess. I guess on the tier below, you don't need it to settle in. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, interesting. All right. Well, you still want them to settle in, especially if you're leveling new laborers. But that's good to know. So you can see when I give this labor fiber journal, filled T5 cropper journal, it's telling me it's going to give me some mix of enchanted and non-enchanted raw fiber. If I go to a crafting one, like I've got at the Martlock Brave Company Island, it'll give me a mix of refined materials back. So let me hop on over there.
Let's go.
Let me grab... Let me remember where I put the journals. And grab the appropriate journals. Alright, so I've got this guild hall properly set up. These laborers have been... I don't think they've been chilling out for 10 hours yet. But I can give these laborers... go to the T4 one. I can give them journals. So if I give her a T4 journal back, you can see I'm going to get a mix of enchanted and non-enchanted resources. And this is a mix of planks, bars, and leather, because that's what is used at the hunters' stations for crafting, which the Fletchers are the crafting labor for the hunter stations. So hopefully that answers your question. I know that was kind of long-winded, but... So Fireman, hopefully that answers it. Alright. Any other questions about anything related to islands, laborers, or Albion economy? All right. Well, I'm going to give it just a minute or two, see if anyone else has any other questions. But if that wraps up the questions, then I'm probably going to get going here. I'm just going to spend this last couple of minutes here just kind of flex in my battle mammoth a little bit because I can. So if you guys have any other questions, again, feel free to ask. If I can remember where I put my battle mammoth, that is. Yep, I'm happy to help, guys. I hope this makes it so people can go out there and make a ton of money with their islands, because that's going to make it better for everyone in our alliance. Did they increase the cost of moving full journals via the travel planner? They actually decreased the cost of moving journals through the travel planner. They used to be super expensive, and so the reason why they did this is because essentially the asset safety system takes the travel modifier into account when determining the price of recovery. So, like, to recover a journal from asset safety, it was like, I don't know, some nuts number, like $1 million or $2 million silver per journal or something ridiculous like that. So they significantly reduced the travel modifier on the journals. So it should have went down, not up. So when you did it before and it was dirt cheap, that was probably post that change. Or if it was before Queen, then I'm not sure. Now I just need to find where my Gucci gear set went. There we go. Oh, now I need to change the appearance. Between times like 500 silver or T5 book or something. Yeah, that's not bad, but that's still cutting into the profit pretty significantly. The margins on books are actually not like insane. Anyways, last call for questions before I go ahead and wrap things up, guys. Alright, cool. Again, guys, if you enjoyed this stream, if this was useful to you, I encourage you to give me a follow. I do plan on doing more Albion content in the future. I want to thank you all for tuning in and watching me babble for an hour and a half. I hope you learned something. I hope this inspires you to get some islands going and start making a bunch of silver. Yes, Brave Newbie is recruiting. Go to Brave Newbie. Go to newbiealliance.com. NEWBY alliance.com. Yeah, go there and join our Discord. I don't have it set to auto ban people who post links, so if one of you brave newbies there wants to post a link, and I can post a link to my YouTube channel, I guess, if you want, although I really do not release content regularly there. Hold on, I need to fish up my YouTube channel link. Alright, there's my YouTube channel too. Oh, we're on AOTV again tomorrow. That's wonderful. Yep, so Brave Newbie is recruiting. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I'm going to release this VOD to my Alliance, and I'm also going to upload it to my YouTube channel, so you'll be able to find it there. Again, hope you all learned something. Hope you had some fun. Stick around. Hit all the buttons that you're supposed to hit. You know the ones. And have a good night, everyone.